What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MoviGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and it's still spooky season. Ooh. Boo. Anyway, I hope this is really scary. uh, this is Bagman. Um, it is, actually, I got this on the Apple Store. It just dropped, like, not that long ago. It's from Lionsgate. I'm like, did this get a theatrical release? Um, but yeah, I don't even know where films from Lionsgate go anymore because Lionsgate used to send all their stuff to Stars. So that usually whether or not I rent something from the Apple Store has a lot to do with the studio behind it. And like, I'm like, do I see a path for it going to a streamer in a couple weeks? So I'll wait for those. That's Trapped. Like it's supposed to come out like right at the end of October. So hopefully I can squeeze it in. Um, but I'm not gonna pay for it because I know it's coming to, I know it's coming. Max, But this I didn't know. And I certainly, based on when it dropped on, I know it wasn't going to come out in October, and I'd be like putting it out in like, I don't know, December or something like that. And it's like, here's a horror movie. I was like, oh, fuck it, whatever. So Bagman uh, has audio description done by William Michael Redman. I think this was deluxe. I do believe this was deluxe. And it stars Sam Claflin. In case you're like, who is there anyone in it? Yeah, Sam Claflin, who's one of those actors where Hollywood tried to really make him a star, and it just didn't quite happen. He's now stuck in like the Taylor Kitsch world of I'm kind of a star, but not really. Sam Worthington is stuck there too. There are a couple actors that are sort of stuck in this world of people know who I am, and I can anchor a movie like this, but nobody's going to give me a $200 million movie. It's just not going to happen. So, um, so he gets a little sort of low budget horror movie. It's PG-13 horror, by the way, so it's got to be more spooky and scary than it does gory. As a matter of fact, I'm not really sure there is any gore in here, although the creature effects are probably pretty decent. He plays, this film takes place where I guess there is sort of like a local legend. It's one of those local legends movies, like Jeepers Creepers, right? Where there's like a creeper and you're like, oh my God. So he grows up and there's the story of this Bagman who's this like demon character that comes out and if you're not watching, he'll grab your kid and throw him in a bag and take him. It's a child abduction. I'm sure there's a different way of looking at this film, being like, there's Sound of Freedom. Where's Jim Caviezel? Where is he? This is what he warned us about with his Bagman. But nah, it's just your evil run-of-the-mill demon. No. Jim can stay at home. There's no Sound of Freedom here. There's the sound of a fucking recorder though that will drive you up the fucking wall, like immediately. I'm gonna tell you right now, A minus. I was sitting there watching the movie actively and being like, I'm not giving this film an A. This recorder is pissing me off. Somebody take this recorder from this fucking kid. And I was like, I know that they're going to use this recorder for something in the movie, but this is the worst. This is the most obnoxious thing. When I'm thinking about like, well, I have to vote and I have to vote for like sound design and sound mixing and like, what do I vote for? Bagman. No, fuck you. Get away. I hate this. I was so annoyed by this kid walking around with a recorder, but not like, he's not playing it. He's just blowing the same, like tooting, like the same pitch the whole time. And it's like, that is the only thing this kid wants to do, is just blow into this recorder. So like the whole movie, you just hear this. I was like, fuck you, kid. Take the kid. Take him. Take that recorder too. Like it was so hard to not root for it because you're sitting there and you're trying to like listen to the movie and you've got this like weird like whistling high pitched recorder noise coming out that isn't scary. It's not scary. It's obnoxious. It is obnoxious. You can use it for a little while, but they do not use it for a little while. And it's funny because like the dad eventually does take it away from the kid and he throws it away and then it becomes like this plot point where it's like, I threw it away, but it should still be in the trash, you know? And then like they find the recorder and it's like, anyway, it's like this other thing. Like, I'm like, why could you not have thought of anything else that was better? Give him a tambourine or something, you know? As a kid, I'm like, what was my first instrument? Like, I'm trying to go all the way back. I'm like, what did I have? I'm like, I had like a xylophone thing. I had a xylophone and I had like a really tiny Casio keyboard. Those are like the earliest instruments that I can think of that I can remember. I definitely did not have a recorder. I think my parents were like, no. They just knew better. They looked at that and they were like, no, 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 no. So I had like a little mini xylophone thing as a kid. Uh, and and I had a little tiny like Casio thing that was, you know, not very big. um, but I anyway, so I'm so distracted by the recorder. Um, and so we flash back to him as a kid, and he's in this. He's got a brother, and there's all this other stuff where um, this one girl gets taken like at the beginning of the film. I guess spoiler, but they got to introduce Bagman somehow. You know, there's got to be an introductory sequence for Bagman. Like, how did he come into play? I don't know. Oh, there he is. Um, so yeah, there's some beginning sequence so that way you know shit is real and this is something you should be scared of. And then he's like playing and he has these like memories of being a kid and he's like, oh, do you remember where I lost this hat? And like he finds this hat like years later. I think Bagman's been stalking him for like 30 years. I wonder if like Bagman has stopped abducting other children just because he like missed his opportunity for this one and he's just been like devoted to like this one. He's like, I only can do one at a time. I have a one train. Because he's like fully grown up now. Like he has a family of his own. Like presumably he like moved away, went to college, something, you know, came back. I think he's back at his mother's house and they're emptying it out. Like I don't think this is his house. I think there's something in the story about how found this at mom's house or something like that. So he's here for like a reason. And he also like he's got the bills. The bills are piling up. That was a plot point that I don't think really went anywhere. Um, he's applied for an extension. And they're like, you're not getting the extension. It's like, oh, he's poor too, and the film doesn't care. Is this important to the plot? I don't know. Not really. So Bagman has a lot of ideas and it introduces them, but most of the things that are really effective are the things that actually have to do with Bagman and with the horror and going for jump scare moments, the building of tension, you know, Bagman clearly being like about to strike and then he doesn't, and like the building of the mounting tension where you're like, oh, he's there, and then you're doing the thing of, you know, like, what would I do in a horror movie? And you're like, I wouldn't go in there. Don't go in there. Why are you going in there? What are you doing? You know, like those kind of things where you're just like, don't do that. So, yeah, there are a lot of things that you see, and the little kid is, he's just, man, you gotta put a leash on this kid. He just like wanders off into the woods and like mom's like, where'd he go? Oh my God. It's like it's in the woods. I think it's effective. I think Bagman is effective at some things. I'm not going to totally say it's not. I've seen definitely worse horror movies this year that just don't work on any level. But Bagman has. I can see why they didn't go like full out theatrical release with this. Although I kind of argue I think probably, I think this has some stuff where it kind of like reminds me of like the early 2000s where we threw like everything out there at horror. Like horror was getting like a new movie like every week. Like there was uh Boogeyman with Barry Watson. I mean, Barry Watson isn't a movie star either, but he's still anchored a horror movie. So, yeah, I mean, like by old school mentality, this would have easily 20 years ago. This has been in theaters. So, uh, I had to sit through all sorts of really crappy films that nobody even remembers anymore. And back in the day, anybody remember Pulse? Like no, I don't really either. Um, One missed call. I mean, like we were putting everything out. Like if it was horror related, it was just like it's in theaters because they're low budget, and if you make it look remotely scary, generally like a PG-13 teen audience will show up for it. So the fact that this didn't really pop kind of makes me go, we're getting lazy now, and we're just assuming streaming will do all the work for us. And that shouldn't be the point. It's like you made a PG-13 horror movie, and for years these always hit theaters, and they always made, you know, I think they always made their money back. I mean, there isn't a huge cast here. I'm sure Sam Claflin was paid maybe like 100,000 for this. Like probably not a lot of money. It's very limited location. I can't imagine this movie cost a lot. Most of the budget is in the creature effects for Bagman, who you do get to see and is described well by William Michael Redman. But not a ton. We're not like staring at him for like long periods of time. So there is always that like ambiguousness to him, but he's effectively used as a creepy character that grabs anything and just puts it into a bag. So, like presumably like a limitless bag too. Like this bag can contain whatever it wants. It's like Santa Claus's bag. It's just all of the gifts to all of the children of the world are in here. Bagman's is like the opposite. He's like, all of the children of the world are in here, or will be. Um, I think you should see it. Yeah, I would low key recommend it, but I'm not gonna like high key recommend. I'm not gonna be like you run and see this. There are definitely better horror movies this year. Definitely better horror movies this year. Although I thought a lot of the build and the tension was done really well. I thought the timing of the audio description was done well. There's a couple effective jump scares. There's even like one effective cheap jump scare I wasn't even mad at, where I wasn't. And when I don't get mad at a cheap jump scare, that means I'm like, okay, well, I see where the relevance of that was, and like it wasn't as cheap as some other jump scares have been, where like the scare has no, like you really had to like put something in there that makes no sense for the film in order to make that scare work. The best one of the ones I can think about that always stands out in my mind is I think Shyamalan did a really good job with Signs, but there's one scare where there's like a barking dog that jumps up. And I always hate that scare. I'm like, dude, your film is so good. It has all of these really effective jump scares. And you put that in the film. That scare is so dumb compared to everything else you're doing. It's like, it's unnecessary. It makes no sense. And it has like no bearing on anything that happens in the film. Like it's just a loud barking dog all of a sudden for no apparent reason whatsoever. And then the dog isn't even like a strong member, like core member of the family that we get to see like remain. So those are cheap. Those are where I get angry. This is something where I'm like, okay, well, it's cheap, but at the same time, yeah, that would make sense to put there. So, um, I'm not going to totally hate on it. I think Sam Claflin gave a good performance. I'd love to be able to say more about the rest of the people in the film, but they kind of come in and out, and it's not really, the film doesn't really hinge on them. Even his wife, I don't know who plays his wife, but the film really doesn't ever focus on her primarily. She has a few scenes, but she's always like worried about her kid wandering off because she's not the one that has the history with Bagman. So the film is also trying to tie Sam Claflin and his history when he was a child and like almost snatched by Bagman. So you've got that kind of connection. She doesn't get as much time here as you would expect, or as much like singular time away from the time that she has spent is more because this doesn't pass like a Bechdel test, so she's usually the one that has to deal with the kid. So most of the time the little kid is around, so is she. So, you know, it's that kind of thing. Got to make sure the woman's taking after kid. Anyway, um, whatever. I mean, for a random horror movie that popped up and I decided to put out for spooky season, I could have done worse. I've seen movies that people have been touting this year, and they've been like, "Yeah, oh, and I'm like, no, that wasn't really that good. What are you talking about? In a Violent Nature, people, I don't know what you saw. I don't know which film you watched, but I watched an awful movie that has really no script. Like the existence of script is just out the window. It has no character development, nothing. There's at least here they're trying, and their performances and characters and things that tie in, and it's not perfect, but I think people will like it. And some of those movies that I listed in the past, like Pulse and One Missed Call, I remember like kind of hating those, and so I think this is better than that. So very mid level horror. Um, I think I'll give Bagman a B minus. I'm not mad at it. I think it has some really. I think it has a few effective moments, and a decent story, a decent concept. So I get that recorder and just throw it away. Just pitch it. Just chuck it in the woods. The first thing I would have done. I love kids, but damn, that recorder would have struck me immediately as I'm not buying that for my kid. That he is too young. He does not understand the concept of how a recorder works. And there are like these little holes on top where you can play different pitches. So he's just blowing it. He's just blowing on like a whistle. It's like giving your kid a whistle, you know? And then he's just running around with a whistle the whole time. Why would you do that to yourself? You know? You wouldn't. No sane parent would do that. No sane parent would be like, oh, here's your whistle. This will be fun for me. So anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys on the other side.